We're going to run for an hour today, so hopefully you're here for the duration. And we are going to be talking about spring cleaning in your family tree. So how to keep your tree clean and pruned so that it can keep growing. And so if you have a specific question related to that, I probably will answer it during our time together, but if I don't, you can ask those questions there in the Q&A. If you need the closed captioning, again, that you can just turn on by clicking the Show Captions button in your menu. So I think that's all the housekeeping items. Let's go ahead and officially get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Crista Cowan. I'm the corporate genealogist here at Ancestry. And today we are going to be talking about spring cleaning in your family tree. It seemed pretty seasonal and appropriate, but for those of you who are brand new to family history, I think this will be beneficial because you might learn some things to keep up with as you go so that this task doesn't seem as daunting. For those of you who've been building out your family tree for a while, I think it's a really good idea to get in the habit of just going through some of these things on a fairly regular basis. Personally, I have a little routine I do about once a month to go through these things so that they don't pile up. The reason this is important is because when we have errors or inconsistencies in our family tree, or when we do not follow the genealogical standards, it means that we create our own brick walls. Places in our tree where we're going to get stuck, or we're going to get confused, or we're going to have created a little bit of a mess, and we want to be able to clean those up so that our family trees can continue to grow, can continue to flourish, and we can continue to make new discoveries. I think that's one of the reasons so many of us are doing this, is because we want to know and understand our ancestors, we want to find their stories, and we want to be able to continue to grow our family tree. So everything we're going to talk about today is going to be focused on that, how to keep your family tree clean and pruned well so that it can continue to grow and flourish. Now, I'm going to be sharing my own family tree, and we'll navigate our way through some of those things on my tree as we do that, just so that you can see in real time where to find some of this information. So I'll share that tree in just a minute. Let me give you an overview before I do that of what exactly it is that we're going to cover today. Now, family tree building on Ancestry is actually free. You do not have to have a subscription to build a tree on Ancestry. Your subscription pays for access to the historical record collections that allow you to make those new family history discoveries. So some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today are free. You don't have to have a current subscription to spend some time to go in and clean up some of this information in your tree. However, some of the features that I'm going to share with you do require a subscription, and some of them require an add-on subscription to the Ancestry ProTools features, which are just some more advanced tools and feature sets that are available to help you work through some of these things more quickly. So as we go, I'll be sure to let you know exactly what you can do for free and what requires one of those subscriptions. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. And we are going to start in my family tree. And that is what you should be seeing on your screen right about now. So this is my family tree. I've got the focus person there shown as my grandfather, Fred. And if you're on a smaller device, you can minimize the chat that pops up if you want to make sure that it's not covering the family tree view so that you can see this. Now, for family tree views, when you go to the tree view menu over here on the left, you can see that there are different ways to view your family tree. It's important to become familiar with those different views because different ways of viewing your family tree is one of the quickest ways to spot errors or inconsistencies or things that might need a little cleanup. So what you're seeing right now on my screen is what we call horizontal or pedigree view. It's showing you a person and their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents back through time. That's pedigree view. Pedigree view is really important. I use it almost entirely because it gives me a map. It's like this view of where I am in my research right this minute. And I can click on any person in my tree and I can make them the focus person by just clicking view his family tree. And then it moves them to that primary position and you can then see their ancestors back for several generations. If you want to extend the family tree or see what else you know about these people, you can just pop on one of those arrows over there on the far right. And again, this just shows you where your holes are. It shows you where there might be some inconsistent information that's been entered. And if ever you get lost, you can always go home, right? Just like in life. When you're in your family tree on Ancestry, whenever you get lost, you can always go home. And that home button for your tree is over here on this tree view menu on the far left. You just click the little house, and then it will take you right back to the home person in your family tree, which in my case, as you can see, is me. Want to go back to somebody else's tree, you're just going to click on View Family Tree. Now, the other options for tree views are vertical. So vertical is just going to take your family pedigree tree, flip it on its head so that the focus person is at the bottom, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents going up the screen. But what that allows you to do is to view the rest of the family. So there's my grandfather and grandmother down there at the bottom. You can see his parents, his 4 grandparents up here. Hopefully you can see my giant purple mouse wiggling around the screen. And then what you're going to see are the other children in the family. So this is my grandfather's father and my grandfather's uncle. And then these are uncle's wives. Over here on the right, you see my grandfather's mother, and then all of her siblings kind of lined up out here with their spouses. So that's the what we call vertical or family view of the family tree. And at any point, you can expand this information to see other family members. So again, this is just a way to start to orient yourself to your tree, to understand how it's grown, to see where you're missing information, and to start spotting information that may be inconsistent. There are going to be 3 things I want you to look for as you're navigating around your tree. Number 1 is consistency in names. Here's what I mean by that. In family history, there is a genealogical standard that we enter women into the family tree by their maiden name and their maiden name only. So as soon as you attach a spouse to her, the system automatically knows that in many cultures over different periods of time, women would adopt the surname of their current spouse. But we always want to make sure she's connected to her family of origin as well, because that's what many of us are trying to do, is go back in time and find her parents. And so you'll see here in my tree, and I hope this is the case in your tree as well, it's the first thing I want you to look for is always just double check that you've got women entered with their maiden names wherever possible. Now, if you don't know a woman's maiden name, you can just leave that field blank. The other thing you could do if you really want to make sure you know that you're missing a piece of information is you could put in 5 underscores. 5 underscores makes a little short blank line that will show up, and I'll show you some examples, that allows you to visually see, oh, I'm missing this piece of information, and I need to find it. It also helps keep you from confusing possible given names and surnames. And so you know you're missing, for example, a surname in that case because you've put it into the last name field. So that is the first thing that I want you to be looking for as you're playing around with, and I want you to play around with these different tree views is, do I have women entered in the family tree with their maiden names? If you don't, that is a place to start cleaning up your family tree. You want to go in and remove any married names she may have had. You want to make sure then also that you've got people's full names, right? You don't need to have nicknames or characteristics or occupations or relationships or anything else in those name fields. You want to keep those name fields as clean as possible, as complete as possible, and as accurate as possible, because that's going to allow the Ancestry algorithms to do their work. There are algorithms that provide you with hints. Those hints are going to lead you to records. Those records are going to give you additional information about your family tree. And so if you keep those name fields clean, that hint algorithm will work the best way possible. Our searching algorithms will also work. You can do a search directly from any person in your tree. I could click on Grandma Lillian here, and I could click this search button, and it would take all that information I have entered about her in the tree, throw it at the search engine, and see what bubbles up to the top of the list. So I want to keep that information clean for that purpose. And then the third reason you want to keep those name fields nice and clean is because of the matching technology. So the matching algorithms work with your DNA. So if you've taken an Ancestry DNA test, Ancestry is constantly trying to figure out who in your tree matches somebody in one of your matches trees, so we can show you a possible path for why you are genetically related to one another. And if they're on your match list, you're genetically related to them. So we're always trying to help you figure out how. So those are the reasons why you want to keep those names for women as their maiden name only, remove any married names from that field, and keep nicknames and other information out of those given name and last name fields. So that's the first thing I want you to be looking for as you explore the different views of your tree, as you navigate your way around your tree. Now, one of the places that you can do this cleanly is in this tree view, because you can very quickly just navigate or look your way through the tree and see, oh, her name changes. The woman's name is different every time than the spouse's name. Now, some of you may have people in your family tree where the woman's name is not different. As a matter of fact, if we jump over here to my mom's side of the family tree, you'll see right here on my Jones line, I have a Daniel Jones married to a Margaret Frances Jones, and that's because they are related to one another. I think they're first cousins one time removed, and they married each other. Totally legal in all 50 states and most countries, and very common back in the day when there were small populations of people living in small counties and up little hollers in Tennessee, in this case. And so that is, sometimes they will have the same surname, but it's because in this case they actually did have the same surname. So names, that's your first thing to go look for, investigate, clean up a little bit. The second thing you are going to want to clean up in your family tree is dates. Dates should always be entered in the genealogical standard. Again, if you want the algorithms to work appropriately for the way that the hinting and the matching and the searching technology works. The genealogical standard for dates, as you can see in my tree here, is the day, the month, and then the year. The day is always going to be entered first, numerically, of course. The month is going to be entered as the three-character alpha abbreviation, and then you want to put the full 4-digit year. So that's the standard we use in family history and in family trees for how we enter dates. And again, that's going to make sure that there's no ambiguity, that there's some like real understanding, that the algorithms are looking at your dates correctly. My grandmother here, this great grandmother of mine, she was born the 8th of November. If I wrote that any other way, it might be confusing. If I wrote 11/8, it might mean November 8th, or it might mean August 11th. It just depends on who's looking at the tree and how they interpret that information. If I just wrote 84, she could have been born in 1884 or 1984 or 1784. There's some confusion about that. So that's why we enter dates as the full date in this format in our family tree. So as you navigate through your tree, you want to look for any confusing dates or dates that you have misentered and not entered in the proper genealogical format. And you know what? It happens to all of us. So if when you're new, you didn't know any better, and you may have some messes in your tree since you learned how to enter information correctly, it's totally okay to go back and clean it up. Now, there is a place to look for the dates or to kind of skim through them quickly to see if you've got any that are not entered correctly. And that tree view is called the list of all people. So over here again on the left-hand tree view menu, one of your options for your tree view is list. And basically what this does is it takes every person in your family tree and it just shows you the index of them in alphabetical order. And so you can, if I scroll down here, you'll see I have these women where I don't have maiden names for them. And so I've entered those 5 underscores and it shows me this really pretty little blank line. It also alphabetizes them all to the top of the list so that I know I'm missing information for those people. I can quickly skim down this list, though, in this birth date field. So I have the birth date and the death date fields, and I can quickly skim down this list and look for any where I have not entered that information correctly. And so that's just a really quick, easy way to see if I've got information that I need to update or fix on any of those dates and the way that I've entered them into my family tree. Now, you'll notice that as we look through some of the dates in my tree, that some of them have the abbreviation ABT before them. So one of the things that I always encourage people to do is if you have an approximate year, if you know, for example, that someone was 32 years old in the 1930 census, well, then you know they were born in about 1898. They could have been born in 1897 or 1898, depending on when the census was taken. They could have been born in 1900 or 1894, depending on who provided the census taker with the information and whether they were given accurate information or not. So starting with an approximate year before you find an actual birth date is completely acceptable. But you always want to make sure that you denote that it is a guesstimate based on whatever information you're currently looking at. And so ABT is an acceptable abbreviation to denote that or to like make sure you know that and other people looking at your family tree know that. So ABT for about or approximate years. Now, sometimes you know a year and a month, but you don't know the actual day. And so you can go through and put in that as well. But I just would encourage you to just review your birth dates and your death dates and make sure that they're at the very least in the proper format. So names, you're going to go review and clean up. Dates, you're going to go review and clean up as you go. And then the third thing, and we've got, I think, 5 or 6 total here today. The third thing is going to be places. So places in family history should always be entered as, let me just come back here to my tree, as from the smallest jurisdiction to the largest jurisdiction, and they should be complete. Here's what I mean by that. If we come back here to my great-grandmother, Ada May, I know that she died in Fayetteville, which is in Washington County, which is in Arkansas, which is in the United States. So I have entered Fayetteville, Washington, Arkansas, USA. That is the proper genealogical standard for locations. If I just entered Fayetteville, Arkansas, USA, then there might be some confusion because county information is important, especially in US family history. It's important in Canadian and UK family history. I'm not as familiar with Australian family history or geography, but I suspect that the more precise you can be in any place in the world, the more likely you are to be able to continue to find information. And here's why. The records that we use in family history were not created for family history. They were often created for governmental, civil, or church purposes. And so we're looking at records that are stored or owned by different governmental or religious entities. And that means we need to know where to look for those records. In the case of birth, marriage, and death records here in the United States, those records are very often kept at a county level. And so making sure you include the county ensures that you know where to look for those records. It also ensures that you're looking in the right place. There are a few places where the same named town or village exists in multiple counties in the same state, or multiple counties in multiple states in the same country. And so making sure you have complete locations is important. We also always want to add the name of the country at the end, because there are oftentimes places with the same name in different countries, particularly when you're looking at things like on the East Coast of the United States or in Canada compared to places in England or places in the Caribbean. There are towns and counties and villages that have the same name as places in England, usually because that's where the settlers of that place came from. And so making sure you include the country, again, means the matching and the searching and the hinting technology on Ancestry is going to be able to work best for you. It also means you're not going to create your own brick walls by not knowing where exactly to look for the next set of records. Okay. If you're ever confused about where an event took place, like if I knew, for example, that Ada Mae died in Fayetteville, but I wasn't sure where Fayetteville was, when you type locations into Ancestry, we give you a type ahead list. So that's one way you can look. The other way is just to do a simple internet search. I often find myself doing internet searches for, Fayetteville County, Fayetteville, Arkansas County, question mark. And then it will pop up a thing about Fayetteville, Arkansas, and it will tell me, oh, that's in Washington County. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes events did not take place, especially the further you go back in time, in a town or a village or a city. They just took place in an unincorporated area of the county. And so it's okay to just list the county. In this case, for her birth location, it just says Washington, Arkansas, USA, because the event occurred in Washington County and not in a particular town in that county. So smallest jurisdiction to largest jurisdiction, and sometimes an event takes place in an unincorporated part of a county. Now, if you don't know the name of the town or the county, it is in your best interest to at least enter the state. So if I didn't know where in Arkansas she was born, all I knew was she was born in Arkansas because that's what the census told me, I'm going to enter the state and the country. If I didn't know where in the country she was born, but I knew both of her parents were born in the United States and she died in the United States, I can have a pretty good hypothesis that she was also born in the United States. And so I would want to put that into the location field, because that's going to allow me, again, to have the best hinting, searching, and matching technology working for me. Instead of delivering me hints for records from Canada or England or Brazil, it's going to make sure I get records for the United States as I'm looking for her. So wherever your family members are from, filling the field in, or a guesstimate or a hypothesis, is better than leaving it blank. And you always want to put in whatever information you know. If you know the name of the city, figure out the name of the county, enter the state and the country. If you only know the name of the state, put that in. And if you don't know any of that information, try to put in the name of a country so that you can continue to make discoveries. So as you go through your family tree, again, that list view is going to help you quickly skim through how you have locations entered into your family tree, or just be aware of it as you navigate through your tree, that you should be kind of eyeballing that or reviewing it. So names, dates, and places. Those are our three most important things that we can be consistent about, where we can follow the genealogical standards, and where we can make sure that we are keeping our tree as clean as possible. Now, the other, let's see how many I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Okay, names, dates, and places all kind of wrap up into one thing, which is genealogical standards. The other things I'm going to share with you today are ways you can actually intentionally go into places in your family tree and look for errors. So everything I've shared with you so far, you can do for free because tree building on Ancestry is free. But if you want to use some of these new features in Ancestry ProTools, it will require a subscription to Ancestry and ProTools. Okay, so we are going to look at my very messy tree right now that I am still working through cleaning up. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger so you all can follow along with me. And for those of you who don't have an Ancestry subscription or don't have ProTools yet, you'll get a feel for what it will do for you. But I will also make sure I give you some ideas about ways you can do some of these things manually in your tree. Okay, I currently have, I've been at this a long time, y'all. I currently have 96,732 people in my family tree. Okay, now I inherited this family tree when I started on Ancestry, and I also do a lot of what's called descendancy research. So my ancestors, like the people that I descend from, very small number, right? Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on. But I add all the siblings and all the aunts and uncles and all the cousins. Like I build down the family tree more than I build back up the family tree. And so of these 96,000 people in my family tree, probably a good 70, 80,000 of them are living cousins, descendants of people. They're my DNA matches. That's who I'm adding to my family tree a lot of the time. And so what you'll see here is the outcome of the way that I have done my family tree. There are 84,000 of those 96,000 people where there is no documentation in my family tree. That means there's no source citation that has been added or created by attaching a record or me manually entering that. Now I'm slowly working through that. Again, I imported this from an old GEDCOM file where I had been working on an offline family history program. So I have source citations. They're in the notes. I'd used the notes extensively, and I'm just in the process now of manually transferring those over. But you should pay attention to that because no documentation means you may not know, unless you've kept extensive notes like I have, where that information came from. And if you don't know where that information came from, how can you evaluate whether or not that information is accurate? One of the things that we do that creates our own brick walls most often is copy information without really understanding, is it true or is it not true? And you can't find the parents of your mystery John Smith if John Smith never existed, if he's a Franken person that was created out of years of copying information from one tree to another. So pay attention to documentation. And then you also want to pay attention to this number right here, which I am very proud of. For me, says 0, which is anybody in your family tree where the only documentation you have is that you copied it from another person's tree. So you want to pay attention to that and see if you can fix some of those things. Now, you can click on, these numbers are clickable, you can click on them and it will filter the list of everybody in your tree just to those people, okay? The other things you get in your error report or your tree rating panel here with Ancestry ProTools is possible duplicates. Now, let's talk about duplicates because this is a big thing when you're cleaning up your family tree. Duplicates happen a lot of different ways. I'm going to actually click on that and we're going to filter my list down to just those 673 people. And we're going to kind of skim through this list so that you can start to see maybe some of the things that are coming up. Okay. Sometimes the things that they think are a duplicate aren't really. So here is an example. In this case, these two women, Jane and Jean, they're twins. And their parents just gave them similar names, and they have the same birth date, and they have the same relatives. And so the system is saying, hey, is this just a weird spelling thing? And these are really the same person? Or are these twins? And so I can go in there and I can say, nope, not really a duplicate, and it will remove them from my list. Sometime, and we're going to look at Nehemiah here next, sometimes they're actual duplicates. So I have a Nehemiah Andrews in my tree who was born in September of 1712 in New Jersey and died the 22nd of September 1785 in Gloucester, New Jersey. And then I have another Nehemiah Andrews in my tree, born the 4th of September 1712 in Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. Okay, and if I go to the family tree, here's what I am going to learn. If I scroll down, you will see I have him in the tree with a spouse and children. And if I look up here at the relationship, he is the husband of my 7th great grandaunt. That's my relationship to Nehemiah. That's why he is in my tree. Now, if I go to this other Nehemiah that I have in my tree, you'll notice he has no spouse and children, but he has parents and he has siblings. And here he's listed as my 8th great granduncle. So do you see how this duplicate happened in my tree? I was looking at my ancestors and I was adding their children and grandchildren and spouses of those people and great-grandchildren, right? I was climbing back down my family tree and I added Nehemiah over here as the spouse of Elizabeth, and I added him over here as the child of, what was it? Edward Andrews and Sarah Ong. And I didn't catch on because I probably did that at different times and was thinking about different things, that the Nehemiah that is the husband of Elizabeth and the Nehemiah that is the son of Edward and Sarah is the same person. So that's one way that duplicates happen in family trees, is different branches of your family tree over time. And this is more likely if you go back further in time. And it is more likely if you come from a small population of people, or if you come from a religiously isolated population of people, or if you come from a small geographic area like an island, or right, like there's lots of reasons why family intermarriages happen. My mother calls her Southern Arkansas, Tennessee family her family wreath, right? Because you've got people within these various families marrying over and over and over again. And so that is important to keep in mind. Totally normal, happens all the time, but this duplicate checker will allow you to find those quickly. And then I can just come in here once I've decided that these are in fact the same person, and I've already done the research to figure this out. I'm not just doing this on the fly. I knew that they were duplicates. And so then I can click here. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. So if you have ProTools, if you have Ancestry ProTools, when you click on the little ProTools exclamation point here at the top of the profile page, it will tell me, we think this person is a duplicate of this person. And then I can walk through the review of that. If you do not have ProTools, then you can still merge duplicates. You're going to find it under Tools, and you're going to click on Merge with Duplicate, and then you're going to need to either look and see if Ancestry has suggested a duplicate for you, or you're going to have to go find that duplicate person. So it's a little bit more of a manual process without ProTools, but it is totally possible. Now, when you review the duplicate or when you go through the merge process, it's just going to walk you through over here in the side panel. Let me zoom back out a smidge so you can see the whole thing. It's going to walk you through exactly which information from which profile you want to keep or merge together. So in this case, his name is the same. I'm going to click on the full birth date with the full birthplace, because this birth date and place is just a partial. And so I want to keep the full birth date. as the primary piece of information. And then the death date will stay, the relationships to the parents and siblings, and the relationships to the spouse and children. And all of that information, when I click merge, is going to merge together into one profile now in my tree for Nehemiah Andrews. And now you can see on his profile page, I have his parents and siblings and his spouse and children all together. Now, another little thing you can do to clean up your family tree is once you do a merge, make sure you have alternate facts selected, because what you're going to see is here's the birth date that I said I wanted as the primary birth date, but it saved that other birth date as an alternate. Now, this is just my personal preference, but something that I would recommend to you if you want to keep things clean, which is I'm going to go ahead and delete this alternate because a person is only born, physically born, once. And so that means they should only have one birth date. And that birth date should be reflective of your best information, based on what you know about this person, what you've researched about them. And so that means that I don't need this alternate birth date in there cluttering things up or confusing matters. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on it and delete it. And now my timeline is also clean with just the singular birth date. That's true of death dates as well. People are born once, people die once. You don't need multiple alternates of birth dates and death dates. What you need to do is look at all of them and come to the best conclusion about what the truth you think, what you think the truth is, and then enter that and remove the others. Now, of course, people can be married multiple times, even sometimes to the same person, but you also want to keep your marriage dates in your timeline clean so that you make sure you are reflecting, you don't have 1739 over and over and over again. Think about that for other events as well. One of the things I also see sometimes in alternates is immigration dates. So somebody found an immigration date for somebody of 1910, and then they found another immigration date for that same person of 1907, and then another one of 1909, and now they've got 3 immigration dates. It is possible that this person came and went from a country multiple times, but it's more likely that you were saving information to your tree and different information was reported on different records. So you need to look at all of those and come to a conclusion about when that event really occurred, update that, and then remove the others. That's just an easy way to keep these profiles clean. Because ultimately, remember, what we're trying to discover is who our ancestors were and the stories about them. And having this clean information about them is going to help you do that most effectively. Okay, so that is how you are going to resolve duplicates in your family tree. That's an important thing to keep clean. Now, if I hit refresh on this, what you're going to notice, I suspect, let's just see what happens. Okay, it did. It updated. So I had 673 possible duplicates. We resolved Nehemiah. Now I only have 672. Sometimes that happens pretty quickly, like it just did now. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to work through the system and update this list. So just keep that in mind as you're going through those possible duplicates. Duplicates are one of the easiest ways to clean up your tree. So like the example with Nehemiah, sometimes duplicates happen because you've added the person to the tree in 2 different places, and you just want to merge them in because they're just one person, and you want a profile page that reflects their whole story. Sometimes duplicates happen because records are messy, families are messy, and we're not always paying attention. And so I would recommend that as you look through this list, what you're going to probably find is a single family where sometimes you've got, multiple spouses with the same name or multiple children with the same or similar names. And usually it's because we didn't recognize that it was the same person when we were saving a record. And so it added that person to our tree multiple times. When you save a census record to your tree and the system knows that it's the same person, it will match that record to the person. But if the name is off or the birth date is off or there's some little piece of information that isn't accurate or totally right on the original record, sometimes when you save it, the system thinks it's a brand new person. And if you're not paying attention to say, oh no, this is the same person, then it creates a new person in your tree. And now you've got, Sarah and Sally in the tree as if they were two separate children, when really Sarah and Sally are the same person. And so that's another way that duplicates sometimes happen in family trees. So just keep in mind, everybody has duplicates. As you can see, I do too, but it's important to work your way through those and get those cleaned up. Okay, the last thing in your tree rating panel here is other possible errors. And so these are what we call logic errors. Things like the mother is too young to have been the mother of that child, or the father was dead for more than a year before that child was born, or the person is just a floating person in your tree and they have no relationships. So we're just looking for things algorithmically in your family tree that just don't make sense. And it's places where you can go and see, is there something else that I need to do? Now, let's talk about floating people in your family tree for just a minute. Basically, a floating person in your family tree, and I've got an example here. We're going to go to Adeline and pull her up. So Adeline was an enslaved person. And so I have entered her into my family tree, and she's newly entered, so I wanted to show you this. I can come in here and add tags. That's another great spring cleaning activity in your family tree, is to go through and add tags to the people in your tree. It allows you to quickly find them again. This is a free feature on Ancestry. You can filter down to lists of people who have tags. There are some preset tags that Ancestry has already created, or you can create custom tags, and you'll see I have all sorts of custom tags that I have created as well. But these tags allow you, like I said, to put information on a person, so you don't have to put it in the name field, that allows you and anyone who can see your tree to see right there in the header. So here's that tag I just added on Adeline. And it allows you to then go and search for anybody in your tree who has that particular tag. So I could come in here and I could say, show me everybody in my tree that has that enslaved tag. And there is the list of, well, it's several pages long, but there's the list of that. Okay. So tags are a great way to just do some spring cleaning in your family tree as well. Adeline, however, because she's an enslaved person, I have not yet found any familial or genetic relationship to people in my tree. And so she has no parents or siblings, no spouse or children. She is, however, I know exactly who her enslaver was. And so, and he is a relative of mine. George is my 5th great granduncle. And I have documented from his paperwork all of the people that he enslaved. And so you can see I've attached them here as web links, and I've created a profile page for every one of these people that then I can click back and forth between the enslaver and the enslaved. So I have them connected. Now, again, doing all of that is a free part of tree building. Ancestry just released a brand new feature earlier this year called Networks. Networks is currently only available to people with Ancestry ProTools, but this allows me to collect information about unrelated people in a different way. So you can see down here, I have a network that Adeline is a part of. So I'm getting an error because she's a floating person in my tree. And the system is saying, hey, you might just want to go look at this and make sure you really meant to do that. In this case, I absolutely did. When I click through on Adeline to that network that I have created, this is going to show me a list in networks of all of the people who were enslaved in this particular family. And so there they all show up, all of the enslaved there. Okay. And it's just a place where I can start to research more about them. I can look through and see, are these people related to one another? Some of them, were any of them fathered by the enslavers? I can collect media. I can collect documents. I can create to-do lists. So networks, if you haven't spent any time with that, if you have Ancestry ProTools, is a really great way to start to collect information about those individuals who in your tree previously may have been floating people, unrelated to other people in your family tree. Now, sometimes floating people really are an error. In my case, they're not, because these are the enslaved people that I've been documenting. But sometimes those people are in error because maybe you added a family to your family tree, and then you realized, oh, that wasn't correct. I added wrong information. And so you deleted maybe some of the people in the tree. And now you've left them floating out there disconnected because you didn't delete everybody in that family you incorrectly added. So people float in the tree either intentionally because we added them because we don't know how they're related yet and we're working to figure it out, or unintentionally because we deleted stuff that we maybe figured out was wrong, but didn't delete everything. So looking through those floaters in your family tree is a really great way to make sure you've cleaned up your tree. Now, logic errors are going to be, I might struggle a little bit because I think I've cleaned up most of them. Let me just kind of look through here really quickly and see. Oh yeah, it looks like I've probably got a couple that I still need to work on. Let's look at this one. Let's see what it tells me. I don't even know. You're watching this live, people. Okay, so when I get to Martha's profile page, it is going to tell me, oh, here we go. I have a child who was born after she passed away. So she, let's see, her children were born 18, 20, 22, 25, 27, 28, 30, and 32. And what I have is that she died before 1824. So what I need to do is I need to come in here and do some research and figure out, where did I get that death date from? Is it true? And is she maybe not the mother of some of these other children? Maybe he had a second wife that I haven't documented yet. And so maybe she's the mother of Martha and Elizabeth, and someone else is the mother of these other children. Or maybe I have the death date wrong. So this is a place in my family tree where I need to do some cleanup work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a tag for myself. This is how I choose to do it. And the tag I'm going to add is unverified. And that way, now she has this little unverified tag, and I know that I need to come in here and do some research. It also means other people who see this will know that the information that I have on this profile page isn't fully accurate or vetted yet. I know there's an error that I've got here that I need to clean up. Once I clean that death date up and put in that accurate information, then she will disappear from this list of possible errors. Okay, so that is some of the ways that I would encourage you to clean up your family tree. Let's just review them one more time. Okay, so the first thing is, and then I'll give you one bonus one. The first one is standardize names, dates, and places. So you're going to want to go through your tree, make sure women are entered with their maiden names, make sure dates are entered correctly, make sure locations are as complete and accurate as possible. So standardize names, dates, and places. That's a great place to start no matter where you are in your family history journey. And that is one of the things that I do on a pretty regular cadence. I just pay attention to that as I go. I go in and I check for those things. If I see them, I fix them wherever possible. The second thing is to look for duplicates. And again, you can do that manually, person by person in your tree, or looking through your list of all people. Or if you have Ancestry ProTools, we will find those possible duplicates for you so that you can review them. Duplicates happen. They happen to everybody. And that's something that needs to be cleaned up. That's actually the part of my tree where I'm working through right now, is trying to get that duplicate number to 0. The next thing is you're going to look at those errors, those other possible errors, logic errors, things that you've entered maybe incorrectly in your tree or that need to be cleaned up. Sometimes those happen just because you transpose numbers in a date. Sometimes those happen, like the example we looked at, because you've got a woman as the mother of all of the children in a family, when it's more likely that she died, possibly even in childbirth. He has a second wife who is the mother of the rest of those children. Or maybe you just have the dates wrong. So that is places in your tree where you can go look and clean up those logic errors. And included in those logic errors or those other possible errors in your family tree are things about floating people in your tree, people who are disconnected from everybody. They may be intentional, they may be unintentional, but it's a really great opportunity for you to go through and just review that information. Use the tree tags. My tree tags are a great way to like annotate information for yourself and for others so that you can remember the next time you see it pop up on your list. Oh no, these people are really twins. They're not a duplicate. Oh no, I know I've got an error here. It's unverified. I need to come in here and clean this up. Or I know this person is a floating person in my tree because they were enslaved and I don't yet know who their other family members are. So lots of ways you can use my tree tags in order to keep track of the information that you know so that the next time that error pops up or the next time you go through that error list, you can just move right on and keep cleaning things up as you go. So standards, duplicates, logic errors, and then sources. Sources, make sure, first of all, that you have them, okay? And sources just mean I've attached a record that is for this person. As soon as you attach a record for that person, a census, a draft card, a passenger list, that is a piece of evidence that the information you're collecting about this person is true. And the more records you can find for them and attach, the more likely it is that the information you're collecting is accurate. Now, we are just going to tell you in that tree rating panel whether you have sources or not. What we can't tell you is if the sources you've attached are for the right person or not. So that is another place where you can just spend some time reviewing those records. Make sure that the records you've attached are for the person you've attached them to. Make sure that those records all together make sense, that they all look like they're for the same person. Original records have errors because records are messy and families are messy, and sometimes we make messes out of trying to put all the puzzle pieces together. And so I just frequently go back through records I've collected and review them. Wherever possible, if an original image exists, you always want to view that. Don't just look at the record page for the census. Go in and actually look at the census image. See what it really says. Make sure you understand the context of all of that. For those of you who have Ancestry ProTools, as you go through these, you'll see your tree score go up and up and up, which I just think is fun and motivating for those of you who are a little bit more competitive. The larger your tree is, the harder it is to get that score to move, as you clearly saw from my own tree. But the smaller your tree is, the easier it is to keep things clean and standardized from the beginning so that you don't end up in the mess that I'm in, having to take decades of old notes about sources and evidence and move them now into the profile pages of those 84,000 people in my tree on Ancestry. Okay, we're almost out of time. I see lots of you have been asking questions. Hopefully your questions have been answered. I see a lot of you have been in the chat. I'm going to give you one more bonus tip before I go, and then I'm going to ask you to do something for me. So the bonus tip is this. As you are spring cleaning your family tree, you're going to be navigating all around it. You're going to be looking at different things. Here's what I would recommend, and this is something that a lot of genealogists just do naturally, but if you're a new family historian, you may not have known to do this, and that is you always want to make sure that you add into your tree all of the children in a family. There's a couple of reasons why that's important. I want you to be climbing your own family tree, not somebody else's. And it's really easy to confuse one John Smith with another John Smith, or one Elizabeth Miller with another Elizabeth Miller, even in the same place at the same time. But one of the ways that we uniquely identify people is because of the relationships in their lives. And so the more you can include the other relatives, the more likely you are to know you've got the right people, that you've attached the right family, that you've attached the right parents, that you're climbing your own family tree. And so, as you look at those records, as you look at the errors, as you review information, as you're looking for those missing maiden names, when you add all of the children in your family, it helps keep your tree cleaner and it helps improve the accuracy of the information that you're finding. If you want a little review about a deeper dive into why that's important, we did a Wednesday virtual event a few weeks ago, myself and Angie Bush from Ancestry Corporate Genealogist, about finding women in your family tree. And she does a deep dive into why looking at some of those other family members becomes an important part of the process. So that is something to keep in mind as you're going through and spring cleaning your family tree. Well, that is all I have for you today. Hopefully this has been a helpful hour that we have spent together. Here's what I would love to hear from you in the chat, not the Q&A, in the chat, or if you're watching this recording on YouTube, in the comments. I would love to hear from you what one new thing you learned today. That does two things. It helps me know if things that I'm teaching you are valuable, or if I'm spending too much or too little time on different things. It helps me continue to prepare these Wednesday virtual event education for you. It also, I firmly believe as an educator, that the act of typing out what you learned means you're more likely to remember it, and that means you'll use it and be able to continue to be successful in your family history journey. So be sure to leave that in the chat before you go. We are out of time for today, so until next time, I'm Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.